Hi, good evening. My name is Vanessa Igot from BSED, Social Studies 4-5E, and I'll present to you my lecture about the learning enhancement for professional and general education. I'll start first with professional education. Question number 1. Outermost layer of the cell becomes the nervous, sensory receptors, and skin parts. So what do you think is the answer, guys? For letter A, endoderm. For letter B, ectoderm. For letter C, mesoderm. For letter D, placenta. So which one is the correct answer for the question number 1? Again, outermost layer of the cell becomes the nervous, sensory receptors, and skin parts. And for the answer, guys, it should be ectoderm. As you can see here, I have placed here some meaning for each of the choices. Let's start first with the endoderm. Endoderm is the innermost germ layer that forms the linings of the respiratory and gastrointestinal tracts and their associated organs during embryonic development. And for the ectoderm, which is the correct answer for question number 1, this is the correct answer because ectoderm is one of the 3 primary germ layers formed in early embryonic development. It is the outermost layer. So again, it is the outermost layer and is superficial to the mesoderm. Mesoderm is the middle layer and the endoderm is the innermost layer. It emerges and originates from the outer layer of the germ cells. So again, guys, mesoderm is the middle layer while endoderm is the innermost layer. So mesoderm is the middle developmental layer between the ectoderm and endoderm, which gives rise to the skeleton, muscle, heart, and bones. And placenta, on the other hand, it is an organ that develops in the uterus during pregnancy. This structure provides oxygen and nutrients to a growing baby. It also removes waste products from the baby's blood. The placenta attaches to the wall of the uterus and the baby's umbilical cord arises from it. So since the question is the outermost layer of the cell, the answer should be ectoderm. Now let's proceed with question number 2. A type of personality which has a stronger tendency to smoke, drink, alcohol, and overeat. Again, the question is a type of personality which has a stronger tendency to smoke, drink, alcohol, or overeat. So the choices, we have 4. A is for oral receptive. Letter B, oral aggressive. Letter C, anal retentive. And D, anal expulsive. So which one is the correct answer, guys? And the correct answer should be oral receptive. So I have also placed here some meanings regarding the 4 choices that I have presented earlier. For the first one, which is the correct answer, oral receptive. So oral receptive personality, guys, it results in an obsession with eating and drinking and curtails tension through an oral activities associated with eating, drinking, smoking, and nail biting. And most likely, this individual tends to be a passive, needy, and sensitive, especially to rejection. So, mga individual nga naaning a personality, most likely, they are afraid of rejection. That's why this personality or this individual has this personality. Then for next one, oral aggressive. It is also a personality stems from obsessive focus, is hostile, verbally abusive, exploitative, ambitious, jealous, and violent. So the difference between the two, for oral receptive, it is an obsession that is the tension is through oral activities, while for the oral aggressive, this personality is for obsessive focus. Like, so they have difference. For oral receptive, you might be drinking a lot, nail biting or smoking, while for oral aggressive, most likely you are very jealous, violent individual. That's why you have this personality. And then for the third one, which is the anal retentive, a personality characterized by meticulous neatness and suspicion and reserve, said to be formed in an early childhood by fixation during the anal stage of development, usually as a consequence of toilet training. So, kani siya kay na-form siya during early childhood, which it was by fixation. And then, for the last one, we also have here the anal expulsive. The anal expulsive, guys, is a theorized a state of a person who exhibits cruelty, emotional outbursts, disorganization, self-confidence, artistic ability, generosity, and rebelliousness, and general carelessness. So they have different meanings, no? As you can see, but the question here focuses here is the personality to which it has a stronger tendency to smoke or drink or alcohol or overeat. And as you can see here in the meaning, that oral receptive is most likely it is associated with oral activities. And by the question itself, it has here eating, drinking, smoking. And it was added here as nail biting as one of the tension that was being shown if you have this kind of personality. So the answer, guys, for the question here for a type of personality which it has a stronger tendency to smoke, drink, alcohol, or overeat, that should be oral receptive. So you should watch out with this kind of personality because you might have one. And then lastly, guys, for the third question for our personal education for this lecture, the question is, his famous experiments with dogs, he showed that desired responses can be elicited when paired repeatedly with a stimulus. Again, the question, his famous experiments with dogs, he showed that desired responses can be elicited when paired repeatedly with a stimulus. Are you familiar with this kind of theory that was being coined by a scientist or a famous person? And we have your four choices again. For first, we have Skinner. That is letter A. Letter B for Bandura. And letter C for Pavlov. Letter D for Thorndike. Again, for letter A, it would be Skinner. B. Bandura. C. Pavlov. D. Thorndike. So what is the correct answer for this question, guys, about the famous experiments that is associated with dogs? Do you have any idea? If none, then the answer will be Ivan Pavlov. So I'll be presenting you guys the different theories that have been studied by the four choices that I have given. First one, we have here the Skinner's theory of learning, operant conditioning. According to B.F. Skinner's theory of learning, again for B.F. Skinner's, his theory of learning is operant conditioning. So according to him, theory of learning, our behaviors are developed or conditioned through reinforcements. He referred to his developed or conditioned through reinforcement. He referred to this process as an operant conditioning, with operant referring to any behavior that acts on the environment and lead to consequences. So there are different reinforcement, positive and negative reinforcement. So this is one of the things that was that was developed, behaviors that are developed for the operant conditioning. Positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement are one of those examples that are associated with operant conditioning for B.F. Skinner's theory of learning. Then again, the name of his theory of learning, it is operant conditioning. Then moving with Albert Bandura's social learning theory, this suggests that observation and modeling play a primary role in why people learn. Bandura's theories goes beyond the perception of learning being the result of direct experience with the environment. So, this is Albert Bandura's social learning theory, guys. So going back with Skinner's theory of learning, which is operant conditioning, according to him, the term operant originated by, originated by him, B.F. Skinner, that he believed that one should focus on the external or observable causes of behavior. So, according to B.F. Skinner, every actions nato na ay consequences. It's either be a positive or negative reinforcement. It has reinforcements. So, this is according to him. All we need to know in order to describe and explain behavior is this. Actions followed by good outcomes are likely to recur, and actions followed by bad outcomes are likely to recur. So there are two reinforcement according to him, or it comes in two forms: positive reinforcers and the negative reinforcers. So for positive reinforcers, this is a favorable events or outcomes that are given to the individual after the desired behavior, which may come in the form of praise or rewards, and etc. For example, like a perfect exam, so you will have a reward after that. And then for negative reinforcers, characterized by the removal of an undesired or unpleasant outcome after the desired behavior. A response is strengthened as something considered negative is removed. The goal in both of these cases of reinforcement is for the behavior to increase. Okay? And then, we also have here the Albert Bandura social learning theory. So for Albert Bandura social cognitive theory, the human beings have specific abilities related to learning that sets them apart from other species. So social cognitive theory states that there are three characteristics that are unique to humans: vigorous consequences, model and initiate others, self-efficacy, and also performance standard and moral conduct. So it is ability to regulate one's own behavior. Again, there are three unique characteristics that was stated according to Albert Bandura. And also it has four phases of observational learning. First is attention. And for attention, guys, mere exposure does not ensure acquisition of behavior. Observer must attend to recognize the distinctive features of the model's response. And two, retention. Reproduction of the desired behavior implies that student symbolically retains the observed behavior. And number three, motor reproduction. A motor reproduction is after an observation, physical skills and coordinations are needed for reproduction of the behavior learned. And lastly, for motivational process, although observer acquires and retains the ability to perform the modeled behavior, there will be no overt performance unless conditions are favorable. They also believe that television was a source of behavior modeling. Okay? And the next one, guys, is for the Ivan Pavlov, which is the correct answer for the question earlier about the famous experiments with dogs. He showed that desired responses can be elicited when paired repeatedly with stimulus. So the correct answer is Ivan Pavlov. Ivan Pavlov observed that dogs naturally salivated when presented with food and unconditioned stimulus. However, through repeated pairings of neutral stimulus, such as a bell with the food, the dogs eventually began to associate the bell with the arrival of food. This study is called classical conditioning. So again, this is called classical conditioning by Ivan Pavlov. So Ivan Pavlov is actually a Russian psychologist and a Nobel Prize winner during 1904 for work on digestion, first to study classical conditioning. And this is the famous experiment that he did regarding with a dog. So there are 4 key elements to describe the process of classical conditioning according to Ivan Pavlov. First is unconditioned stimulus. The unconditioned stimulus, or UCS, is any stimulus that consistently produces a particular naturally occurring automatic response. In Pavlov's experiment, the UCS was the food. So again, UCS or unconditioned stimulus is the food. Next one, unconditioned response. For unconditioned response, the unconditioned response UCR is the response that occurs automatically when the UCS or the food is presented. The UCR is reflexive, involuntary response that is predictably caused by UCS or by the food. In Pavlov's experiment, UCR was the salivation. So UCS was the food, UCR was the salivation. And also we have your conditioned stimulus. Conditioned stimulus, or CS, is the stimulus that is neutral at the start of the conducting process or conditioning process and does not normally produce the UCR. Yet, through repeated association with the UCS or again the food, the CS triggers or conditioned stimulus triggers a very similar response to that caused by the UCS. So CS is actually the neutral stimulus. And lastly, the conditioned response. The conditioned response, or CR, is the learned response that is produced by the CS. The CR or conditioned response occur after the conditioned stimulus has been associated with the UCS, the unconditioned stimulus, or the food. So, conditioned stimulus is actually the bell. When you ring the bell, after you ring the bell, there will be a conditioned response since the conditioned stimulus was triggered. Okay, so that is for the Ivan Pavlov. That is one of the famous experiments that he does. So again, for Ivan Pavlov, there's a dog, meat, and bell. For dog, that would be this is just an example, students. Meat would be the teacher. Bell would be the object. So, stage 1, before conditioning, dog, there is no response. When you ring the bell, when you see the bell, then after that, there's a neutral stimulus that will show up. For stage 2, during conditioning, bell, then neutral stimulus. If the dog will see the meat, unconditioned stimulus, or the dog, there's an unconditioned response. And for stage 3, after conditioning, the bell, the dog conditioned response, or the dog learned that when you ring the bell, when you ring the bell, the dog will likely know that there is a meat that you will going to give to the dog. That's why ang dog mag-salivate. So that's according to Ivan Pavlov classical conditioning. Okay, and lastly, for Thorndike's law of learning, or Edward Thorndike's theory of learning emphasizes the significance of reinforcement and punishment in shaping behavior, stating that behavior that is followed by a positive consequence is more likely to be repeated, while behavior that is followed by a negative consequence is less likely to be repeated. Thorndike's theory of learning is called the law of, not law of effect, I'm sorry, it is laws of learning. Law of effect is one of the laws of learning that Edward Thorndike has for his theory of learning. So the first one is law of readiness, emphasizes the role of motivation. Number 2, law of exercise. A connection is strengthened in proportion to its frequency and its average intensity and duration. And lastly, which I have mentioned here, law of effect. Responses accompanied by satisfaction strengthen the connection. Responses accompanied by discomfort weaken the connection. So again, guys, the correct theory of learning, or the correct term for the theory of learning for Edward Thorndike, it would be laws of learning. Law of effect is one of the laws of learning that was part of his theory. And that would be all for the professional education questions that I will be presenting now, the general education, guys. So for general education, I also have here 3 questions that I will going to ask you with that. And the first question, it would be Filipino pianist who is internationally renowned. So who is the Filipino pianist who is actually internationally renowned? We have here A. Rosie Farol, B. Ingrid Santamaria, C. Teresita Agada, letter D. Cecil Licad. Again, letter A. Rosie Farol, letter B. Ingrid Santamaria, letter C. Teresita Agada, and letter D. Cecil Licad. So for the question 1 for general education, which one is the correct answer, guys? And the answer will be Cecil Licad. As what I have known, Ingrid Santamaria is also a Filipina pianist, but the question here is internationally renowned, so it should be Cecil Licad. Cecil Licad is a pianist he is actually called a pianist by the New Yorker. Cecil Licad's artistry is a blend of daring, musical instinct, and superb training. Her natural talent was honed at the Curtis Institute of Music by 3 of the greatest performer of our time, Rodolphe Sorkin, Seymour Lipkin, and Ms. Sai Lo. Not quite sure if this is the correct pronunciation for this name, but that 3 person is actually the greatest performer or a greatest pianist that honed Cecil Licad's talent in playing piano. So why she is a world-renowned Filipino pianist? It is because Cecil won international recognition as one of the youngest musicians to ever receive the prestigious Leventhal competition gold medal. Her triumph in 1981 launched her international career, performing with major orchestras in the world. Her recording of Chopin's Piano Concerto No. 2 and Saint-Saëns Piano Concerto. So that's one of the reasons why he is internationally renowned. It is because she was able to perform with the 3 greatest performers of our time. So Cecil Licad is the correct answer, and that should be letter D. And the second question here for general education, one of the pledges of the President of the Philippines is to defend its A. Constitution, B. Citizens, C. Land, and letter D. Islands. So, if you are the President in the Philippines, what are your pledges, or what should be the correct answer on who you should defend to if you are one of the president? So again, A, Constitution, B, citizens, C, land, and D, islands. So what is the correct answer, guys? Is it letter A, B, C, or D? And the correct answer, it should be Constitution. I have here the pledge. Whenever the president is, if ever ang presidente madaog, so I have here the pledge that he or she will do. And by the way, guys, if you have not yet known, the Constitution is the basic principles and laws of a nation, state, or social group that determine the powers and duties of a government and guarantee certain rights to the people in it. So, President has a very crucial role and has a big role in defending the Constitution, since as what I have mentioned earlier, a president is one of the very important person that will actually defend the country and its constitution, because without those constitution, we cannot have the freedom, we cannot nandito makaliho kung unsi ang ilihukon as a person or as an individual in this country. And as you can see on the screen, you can read the pledge actually. And under this part, preserve and defend its constitution, execute its laws, do justice to every man, and consecrate myself to the service of the nation. So help me God. So since the question is about the pledges of the President of the Philippines is to defend its constitution is the answer, guys. So letter A. So now you know nang nasa pledge sa sa president is to defend the law, the constitution, and provide justice to every fellow Filipino man or woman. And for the last question that I have here, guys, for the general education, what is an ancient form of communication? Again, what is an ancient form of communication? On the choices here, we have Morse code, radio, letter, email. Again, Morse code, radio, letter, and email. So which one is the correct answer for the ancient form of communication, guys? And the answer would be letter. I have here the different meaning for each of the choices that I have here. First is the letter. A letter is a written message that can be handwritten or printed on paper. It is usually sent to the recipient via mail or post in an envelope. Although this is not a requirement as such, any such messages that is transferred via post is a letter, a written conversation between two parties. And that is the meaning for letter. And also, for Morse code, originally, telegraph operators used Morse code to transmit messages using electrical pulses that they then translated into text messages. Later, radio communicators adopted the code and began to use it as an auditory language that comprises signals as easily translatable dots and dashes. And also for radio, the term radio communication or communication by radio means the transmission by radio of writing, signs, signals, pictures, and sounds of all kinds, including all instrumentalities, facilities, apparatus, and services. Among other things, the receipt forwarding the delivery of communication incidental to such transmission. And lastly, for email, guys, email communication is one of the most widely used tools in businesses. It is important to use it effectively. Proper email communication can save time, offer guidance, show competency, and establish a reputation for a person or business. Knowing how and why email is beneficial and how to best use it can help you in nearly any profession or industry. So here's this further details regarding why letter is the ancient form of communication, because around 500 BC, The first ever handwritten letter was thought to have sent by the Persian queen Atosa in around 500 BC or before Christ. According to the ancient historian Hellanicus, their popularity as a way of sending messages grew as more people became literate. And who created written communication? The Sumerian archaic or pre-cuneiform writing and Egyptian hieroglyphs are generally considered the earliest true writing systems, both emerging out of their ancestral proto-literate symbol systems from 3400 to 3100 BCE, with earliest coherent texts from about 2600 BCE. So that would be the further details regarding why the letter it is known as an ancient form of communication, because of its details, or because of the reason that it was around 500 BC when letter communication was invented. And that would be all, guys, for my lecture about the professional and general education. And thank you so much for listening, and have a great day. Bye for now.